They say all men are created equal. Shot! Master! I'll pull out the Glock! Full of suffering succotash, son!
One of your nuts is hanging out of your shorts.
Real glass!
You have a father, but your father's dead.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Too Sweet podcast with just Lucy this week. Unfortunately, Estelle isn't with us this time round, but nonetheless, I'm going to try and do my best to run down what happened on Dynamite this week. We had Grand Slam, which was a huge stacked card, and I was so excited for this. So it's a shame that Estelle's not here to talk about it with me, because I'd love to know her thoughts too. Before I get into that though, I just want to let you all know our plans. So we want to do a review of the Mr. McMahon Netflix series that's just come out. Ideally, we want to get this out this weekend as like this month's special episode. But I'm just a bit busy and I'm not sure if I'm going to get to finish it in time for this weekend. So if I do not, we are going to do a Q&A as promised last week. So that'll either be the Mr. McMahon review or the Q&A. If it's the Q&A, then the Mr. McMahon review will hopefully come next week. Having said all of that, if you've got any questions you want us to answer in a Q&A, then please let us know. Comment them down below. Anything at all. If you want to get to know us a little bit more, if you want to know what we think about your favourite wrestler, if you want to ask us about our most controversial takes, anything you want, anything. So please leave those down below. And that'll give us a nice fun Q&A at some point, whether it's next week or not. I also want to say, speaking of Netflix series, I watched Queen of Villains this week, which only just came out, and that is about Dump Matsumoto. You have to go watch that. So it is like, it's not a documentary like Mr. McMahon, but it's like semi autobiographical. It's fictional, like it's acting and stuff, but it's awesome. You got to go watch that if you're a wrestling fan. You're going to spend however many hours watching the Mr. McMahon documentary. You know, this Queen of Villains, it's 5 1-hour episodes. You've just got to do it. It's great. I really, really enjoyed it. If you don't know, it's about Japanese women's wrestling in the 1970s and 80s. And it was just fascinating, so entertaining, funny, emotional, intense, really violent, really bloody. Definitely give that a watch. Highly recommend. It's available on Netflix. Definitely in the UK, definitely in the US. Not sure for the rest of the world. Definitely in Japan, because it is originally in Japanese. Definitely give that a watch. But enough yapping, let's get into Grand Slam. As I mentioned before, I was really excited for this. I got up early this morning so that I could catch Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness early before I went to work. I was so excited for this match. I think there was a lot of anticipation around this just because of their history, especially, from old school wrestling fans who've been following their careers for so long, Ring of Honor fans. We know the volume of this match, and I think they did a great job of building up to it with limited sort of resources and time. Nigel's been building up for this since he's been on commentary in AEW. Like, he's always been slagging off Bryan. So yeah, the anticipation was high for me, at least. I know that some people have been a bit disappointed, thought it was lackluster, but I was really excited. So basically, we had Nigel come down to the ring to Oasis first, and then Danielson's AEW music hit, and he didn't come out. Big part of the story going into this being like, a big caveat is Bryan cleared to wrestle, and it wasn't confirmed that he would be. So that was, some leverage that Nigel had was, if he didn't turn up, he's scared of me and he needs to be stripped of the championship, blah, blah, blah. So Nigel was beside himself thinking he's not coming out, got the referee to start counting. And then, of course, the final countdown hit, and that's when Bryan came out. So love that. That's the music that he used in Ring of Honor, of course, and it's what we've been using for him recently in AEW, and I love it. Give me goosebumps, and it reminds me of being in Wembley. Beautiful. And I just think it's amazing that these two, they have a library full of wrestling matches spanning 18 years, they were saying on commentary, Their first match in 2006. The last match, I believe, was in 2011. And here we are in the year 2024, adding to that. Beautiful, amazing. Physically, yes, obviously they look different, but in the ring, once they started getting going, they were as smooth as ever. There was some really beautiful chain wrestling in this, which I really enjoyed. JR was on commentary too for this one, which, added the special feeling to this. He said this is the match he's most looking forward to in his whole AEW career out of all the matches he's commented on in AEW. So that, his voice has a lot of weight to it for sure. So he definitely added to this. It was an interesting choice having it as the opener. I think over Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin, it was the main event. To be honest, I think that Bryan versus Nigel is more of a draw. But I don't hate that because, I think there was a lot of anticipation behind this match, and you don't want people on tenterhooks for the whole, show waiting for this match. So I wasn't mad that it opened the show. In fact, I was very happy because, I could wake up and put it on and then pause it and watch the rest of the show later. So yeah, I think it was the main event, to be honest. But having it open the show and set the tone this way was nice. So yeah, this again, it was just a great match. Like I mentioned before, we had the chain wrestling and things. We also had some harking back to their older matches where the brutal ring post spot where Bryan pulled Nigel's skull first into the ring post. We didn't have that repeated. Thank God, by the way. I don't want to see that repeated. That shit was gnarly. But Nigel he did get pulled shoulder first into it. So it was nice to have, that harking back to their classic matches. Nigel went for the Tower of London and Bryan reversed into the Psycho Knee, which was awesome. And Nigel hitting the Jawbreaker Lariat, Danielson kicking out at one. Just one. So, he's just proven that he is, out of the two of them, the more seasoned wrestler at this point. And again, like similarly later on, Bryan kicked out of the Tower of London. And also Bryan was working the elbow throughout this match. So his surgically repaired elbow, easy for you to say. So Nigel was obviously targeting that with the London Dungeon, one of his submission moves. That was kind of what the comms team were playing on, that's what was gonna, if anything, that was what was gonna lose in the match. He was in a lot of pain, but Bryan managed to escape, elbowing Nigel in the face, which again, that's one of the ways that Nigel lost one of their matches, one of the most famous matches. I believe it was the one in Liverpool, their third match, ended by referee stoppage with the elbows to the face. So that was awesome. I could just talk about this match forever. I'm yapping, but I loved it when Bryan went for the Jawbreaker Lariat, but Nigel caught him instead. This was towards the end, so Nigel got Bryan down, but they landed in perfect position for Bryan to lock in the label lock, which eventually it wasn't straight away. It took some rolling around and stuff, some fighting back, but Nigel eventually tapped out. But it was after he sort of looked straight down the camera and went, "Thank you." So who was he saying thank you to? We don't know. Presumably saying thank you to Bryan, and commentary pointed that one out too. And then he tapped out. I mean, it was a really nice ending, I think, because it sort of showed that Nigel got what he wanted, which was just to be known as a wrestler again, prove that he can still go. He can go toe to toe with the best there is, Bryan Danielson. And he said thank you. It's not ending on these sour notes. That seems to be putting a full stop on their feud, I think, just because of this ending. But who knows? We'll see. I think we all knew that Bryan was going to win. He's clearly, kayfabe terms, he's clearly the better wrestler, because he is the champion, right? And he's been wrestling non-stop. You know, Brian, this was Nigel's first match um, for 13 years or something. So clearly he's got ring rust, and clearly Brian's going to be better than him. But so like the ending made complete sense in that, and I liked the way they did that. I think that this was a brilliant match nonetheless. Was it as good as their past matches? No, obviously not. They're 13 years older. They suffered a lot of injuries in that time, a lot of illnesses, They've they both retired in that time and then come back. Also, they didn't have 30 plus minutes like they did in back in Ring of Honor to really go at each other. So to people saying it didn't live up to the hype, I say just get a fucking grip. This was a really good match. It was a really good match. And it's not the massive work rate of Ring of Honor. Obviously not. These people have grown up in that time. Like, they're older. That's just what happens to wrestlers. The fact that they could go out there and do this match, I think is amazing. And like I said before, the year 2024, we're seeing Nigel McGuinness versus Bryan Danielson, in an arena that's aired on television. That's amazing. That's amazing. And it was a good match. It's not just, oh, it sounds cool on paper. It was a good match. It really was. And it was a great moment. And I really enjoyed it, in case you can't tell. But moving on, Christian then appeared with the contract that he's won, and he was about to sign it. So he's about to cash in on Bryan, and you're thinking, yeah, makes sense. Like, if you're a smart person, you obviously would do that to try and get the championship. But he was taking his sweet, sweet time with this pen, and then suddenly Kip Sabian turns up behind him, and you think, great, he's gonna attack him from behind, like this is his chance. No, he didn't. He just grabbed the pen and ran off. And I'm thinking, okay, kind of funny, but you're a wrestler, so why not just beat him up? That's what wrestlers do. I don't know. Maybe I'm too preconditioned as a wrestling fan that everything must end in violence. But I thought it was a little bit lame, to be honest. And just like what we were saying last week about the whole Kip Sabian thing, don't really care. And they're probably going to feud, and it's just prolonging Christian's inevitable cash in. Whether that cash in is going to be successful or not, I'm not sure. Nonetheless, yeah, Kip Sabian, I'm not bothered about you, mate. I don't care. Don't care. So Christian obviously went running after Kip, and he ran into Claudio and Pac, who were just standing there menacingly for some reason, just like behind the stage, just stood there. That bit weird, just a bit weird, but I'm always here for a bit of Claudio and Pac, so whatever, all good on all accounts by me. So next up we had Hook versus Roderick Strong for the FTW Championship. This was a pretty good match, to be honest, and I think it showed how much Hook has improved. Roderick Strong is, I want to say a veteran. I feel like some people probably disagree with that, but he has been going for a long, long time, and he's very good. Technically very sound, and Hook was able to keep up with him. Obviously, as a FTW match, there are no rules. So there was weapons involved, but they didn't become like the focus of the match, which I think was good. And it didn't need to turn into like a violent sort of weapons party. It was a wrestling match there was some kendo stick spots and things like that. So that didn't take away from the focus of the match, which I think was good. I was happy with that. And I didn't have really any big strong feelings about the match, but it was good. And Hook ended up winning with the red rum. I don't really have anything else to add about the match. The biggest headline coming from this was, of course, what happened afterwards. So Hook went to have an interview with Tony Schiavone. So Hook was basically saying how the FTW Championship was created by Taz, of course, his dad, in 1998, in the city where they were, which was New York, not far from the arena. And I think it was like nearly to the day or something. And basically he said all good things must come to an end, and he retired the FTW Championship, which I didn't see coming. I don't know about you guys. I wasn't expecting that. And then he, handed the belt back to Taz, and they embraced and Taz was crying. So emotional moment. Quite nice to see Taz, being open and emotional on TV with his son. Quite touching, really. But yeah, I don't really know what to think about this. I don't really think I had strong enough emotions about this belt to fully care about it. Um, it didn't have a huge impact, I don't think, on AEW. I think it was basically just Hook's belt, and it was a nice thing for Taz. And I feel like it's probably Taz's choice, Taz and Hook's choice to retire it here, which is fair enough. And it's nice that it can end with Hook defending it. Uh, my only issue is that I just wish it had a better recent legacy than fucking Chris Jericho. I mean, he's the last person other than Hook to hold it. I feel like that's going to be a big part of its legacy. That's a shame because that storyline was a real stinker. Maybe we could have got a nice, better feud out of it. Just last run. I don't know. But clearly this is how Taz and Hook wanted to end it, so that's fine. I don't think AEW is going to suffer without this belt. Let's be honest, we don't need more belts in this roster at the moment. And this one, I don't think it was elevating Hook really. I know Estelle and I went into quite some depth on this last week, just about Hook. He doesn't really have a character. He doesn't really have direction at the moment. Stripping him of this, I'm not stripping him, but him retiring this belt, does this give him even less direction? Maybe that's arguable. But maybe this can give him the chance to go do something different when it's not about this belt, and he can maybe go after a different belt. So yeah, like I say, I didn't really have that strong feelings about this championship anyway. So I was just surprised because I didn't see this coming, and I don't think anyone saw this coming. So next up, we had the Young Bucks versus Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay. On paper, this sounds like a high-flying, flippy tag team match, and it was indeed a high-flying, flippy tag team match. It was great, and I've seen a lot of people saying it was their match of the night. Totally fair enough. It was a great match. Probably not mine, just because I prefer personally Bryan versus Nigel. I know that Estelle would have loved this one, and she probably watched it and had a lot of fun. So I'm glad about that. Yeah, this was a really good match. Despite the confusion over why would Ospreay be fighting for these belts, put all that aside, and we're treated to a great wrestling match. So we had I mean, you don't even know where to start. I mean, I would just say just go watch this match if you haven't. Instead of me trying to describe how good it was, just go watch it, and you won't regret it. That's for certain. Because there's just so many spots where you can't even explain what happened, because it's like your eyes can't even comprehend it. Um, there was one in particular, like the hidden blade that came after, there was a whole load of flippy stuff, and then Ospreay just hit it out of nowhere. That really, I thought that was great because it just, again, I've said it on this podcast before, it just shows how great that move is. We also had a TK driver on the apron. Crazy shit. I mean, these guys threw caution to the wind for this. Also, the Bucks went for the TK driver again inside the ring, and Fletcher and Ospreay caught them, reversed it into double styles clash. That was awesome. Really cool. That was followed by the hidden blade again and the Stormbreaker, but not for the win. And at this point, Matthew just kept on kicking out. Ospreay and Fletcher hit their own TK driver, and Matthew kept on kicking out. Yeah, the Bucks were definitely on point in this one in a way I think we've not seen in AEW for a while. Just them doing their sort of old school stuff, just being a great tag team, going balls to the wall, high speed. Yeah, definitely Fletcher and Ospreay brought the best out of them, I think. So, sort of towards the end, Don Callis tried to get involved. He handed Kyle Fletcher a screwdriver, but Ospreay stopped him from using it. And then Fletcher ended up getting hit in the head by one of the tag team belts by the Young Bucks because of all the distraction and stuff. He kicked out, but then they hit the EVP trigger for the win. So yeah, a bit shenanigan-y towards the end. Didn't take away from, the quality of the match. It was quite a long match, to be honest. So yeah, all this shenanigans didn't diminish it at all. So I think that this kind of showed why, like, it validated Ospreay for why he wanted to leave the Don Callis family. Like, he's not about that life. He's not about cheating. He's not about doing things dishonorably. He wants to win, straight up, which is fair. And you could see that Kyle Fletcher was really angry at him, basically cost them the match because they didn't use the weapon. Yeah, so there's maybe an interesting story to be told there. But I think we all knew that Ospreay and Fletcher weren't going to walk away with the belts. Although there were certain points in this match where it looked like they maybe could. Just, you know, like I mentioned before, Matthew was crazy on the kickouts and the near falls and stuff. Um, I'm not mad that they didn't win. I'm glad that they didn't because Ospreay's got that singles belt. He needs to focus on that. But maybe we can thread a story through from this with that belt. Maybe Kyle can go after the belt. I don't know. We'll see. But overall, this was a really good match and a great segment. Next up, we had a conglomeration interview backstage with Renee, and Rocky Romero was there, and he was invited to join the conglomeration, and he accepted. So we have a new member, even though they've just released new t-shirts, and he's not on the t-shirt. Oh well. And then we had a Prince Nana interview, and basically it was sort of the angle that they went out to market this was Prince Nana like giving an interview on Swerve, and he basically said, obviously he's very hurt, but he's fighting as best he can to come back soon. And then he was interrupted by MVP of all people. He didn't have a big entrance, right? He just walked down with a microphone. He got quite a good pop. People obviously recognized him and they were excited to see him, which was great. I mean, I wasn't expecting it and it was pretty exciting, new face in AEW, didn't see this coming. And basically he was on the microphone saying, really putting Swerve over, saying that he thinks he's the best talent to ever set foot in an AEW ring, listing off his accomplishments and things. And then he shifted and asked, after everything that Hangman did, why isn't he in the ICU? And he said, it's a failure of management, who, obviously referring to Prince Nana, who was stood right there, saying it's a failure of his management who's too busy selling coffee and dancing. He said, when Swerve is ready to be taken seriously again, you can give him my business card, and handed his business card to Prince Nana. So, this is interesting. This is potentially interesting. So, I quite like when we sort of get to delve into the details of the non-wrestling characters on AEW. So, we've had it with Nigel, Don Callis, for example, just exploring these other figures. And I think, yeah, getting MVP involved, this is an interesting chance to maybe add some depth to the character of Swerve. So is he going to be materialistic and take this offer? MVP, very famous, got a great history. And he's going to promise Swerve that he can do bigger and better things. Is he going to be swayed by that, or is he going to stay loyal to Nana? If he turns his back on Nana, I'm going to be fuming because I love that guy. So that's an interesting story. I don't know where it's going to go, but we'll see. I don't know what to expect from this. What do you guys think? Is Swerve going to switch to MVP? Although I don't want it to happen, that might be more interesting. But then where does that leave Prince Nana? Or maybe he's scoping to go do something else. Maybe this is his way of getting written off. Who knows? And next up, we had just a little segment of the scapegoat bus driving through the streets of New York. Pretty pointless, but nice, I guess. And then after that, it was time for Yuka Sakazaki versus Mariah May. This was for the AEW Women's Championship. I think commentary did quite a good job of building up to this and showing us why Yuka is a valid contender. they explained how she's been undefeated in 2024. She's an AEW original. She's recently come back from injury and yeah, just been performing really well because she's obviously, like I said, undefeated. Um, so yeah, they went back and forth. It was quite a good match. It was a good match. Mariah May is great. She's proven time and time again that she can deliver inside the ring, and she is deserving of that championship belt for sure. I think she's an absolutely brilliant champion, and Yuka just bringing that trademark, energy. She kick-started the match with a crossbody from springboard crossbody all the way to the outside before Mariah had even entered the ring yet. So that was very cool. You see, yeah, I did enjoy this match. I just thought it's maybe a bit too short. For a championship match, I know that this show was stacked, but I'm maybe kind of biased. I'm always going to take issue when it's the women's match that suffers and gets quite short. Maybe I don't know, maybe it wasn't short. I didn't time it or anything. I don't know exactly how long it was. It just felt quite short to me. And maybe a little bit predictable as well. Like, yes, I didn't think that Yuka was going to win, but I felt like she deserved a bit more of a showing than what she got in this. I don't know, maybe I'm just being too picky, maybe. Like I didn't hate it by any means, and I'm not trying to criticize for the sake of criticizing, but that's just an observation that I had. So I'd be interested to know if anyone else thought the same, or am I just being overly critical? But yeah, I just thought, for a championship match, a little bit more sort of intensity and sort of uncertainty. Let it breathe a bit more would have maybe been nice. But nonetheless, like I say, I didn't hate it. It was a good match. Just observations. So then afterwards, Mariah sort of looked like she was lining up Yuka, and Willow Nightingale's music hit. She came down to the ring to stop Mariah from hurting Yuka. And then Mina Shirakawa's music hits, and that distracted Willow, making her turn around. So Mariah was able to get her from behind. She hit her with the belt, I think. And then Mina was like, "Oh shit, sorry, I didn't mean to do that." Sort of looking concerned, that Willow was hurt. But then Mariah was all happy because she finally got what she wanted. She got Mina to come back, so she rushed down to the ramp and gave Mina a big hug. Meanwhile, Mina was just looking confused and concerned. And then Yuka went running down as well, but then it cut away. So maybe I think again it's just a case of this not having the time to breathe. I think this was just a bit weird. Because now not only do we have Yuka, Mina involved in this storyline, we also have Willow now. So who is going to be the next contender for the championship, or is it going to be, are we making a tag team situation? I love it. The more women we can get on TV, the better, right? But keep it simple. I just want to see Mariah face off with one person and have a good, meaningful feud. She's the champion. And I just don't understand why Willow got involved with this. I mean, commentary said, they're close friends, as in Willow and Yuka Sakazaki. So, okay, fine, she wanted to save her friend. But I'm just not sure what this is leading towards. I would love to see Willow versus Mariah May. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see that. But I want to see Mina versus Mariah May. We've been building to that for a while, and I want to see how this is going to play out. And I want to see those two face off. So I don't want it to get muddled and confused with this other stuff. So I guess that's my takeaway from this is, can we just keep this simple and not overcomplicated, please? What do you guys think? What match would you prefer to see? So then after this, it was main event time, which was Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin. And yeah, notice how this show, was just wrestling match after wrestling match after wrestling match. There was no filler in this. There was no fluff. It was just, here are some huge wrestling matches, enjoy. And I was like, eating good tonight. I really like this about this Dynamite. It was that, they marketed it as this big event, Grand Slam. And I think it delivered on that, it just didn't feel like a normal episode of Dynamite. It did sort of feel like a mini pay-per-view with a card of matches, and that's what you got. You didn't get We got one backstage segment and that was it. Love that. Love that. Just straight into the action. Um, so yeah, it was time for the main event. We had Mox joined by Marina Shafir. Moxley was looking absolutely dashing, can I say, in a camo bomber jacket. He absolutely ripped to bits as well. Like he's in amazing shape. Um, and beating up Darby Allin. I mean, men, if you're watching this and you're wondering what women want, that's what women want. Jon Moxley, simple as. Sorry, I'll stop thirsting over Jon Moxley now. Darby also was in this match. He had a skateboard that was like half Moxley's face, half like a skull. That was very cool. Nice artwork, whoever did that. Um, so yeah, these two, it was very much a violent sort of car crash of a match. Like here's one violent spot after another after another. And to be honest, Moxley had the upper hand for most of it. Darby was bleeding profusely from the mouth not long into the match. So that made for quite a cool visual, to be honest. It sort of reminded me of the Joker, like he just had blood all over his mouth. He was Irish whipped into the corner, and then like instead of just taking a corner bump, he positioned himself so that he fell straight through the ropes and fell out of the ring onto the floor. That was really brutal. This man, he's so good at just throwing himself around like a rag doll. Um, and then, whenever the ref's back was turned, Marina would get involved, kicking shit out of Darby Allin. And yeah, I like her presence. She's very badass. She's very no nonsense. I was sort of thinking when I watched this, like, because she had a little bit more personality. I think the sort of non-autonomous bodyguard sort of tough figure is maybe a bit overdone in AEW at times, but she's cool. They're cool. They've got awesome aura, so I'll let it go for this. They Marina and Mox like ripped up the floor, the padding that they've got on the floor, together, to reveal the concrete or whatever. Darby, being the dumbass that he is, try to line Moxley up for like the suicide dive that he does. That's like through the bottom and the middle ropes, but Mox obviously moved out the way and just threw Darby, like he crashed and burned on this concrete, which was brutal. And then like literally 2 seconds later, he picked him up and just smashed him spine first onto the steel stairs, which again was fucking brutal. I think anyone else who this would have happened to, like, you'd have commentary being like, oh my God, holy shit, no way, his career could be over. But because it was Darby, I do think that the reaction was sort of understated to this and just how dangerous that spot really was. Because he does this shit all the time. I'm not, this isn't criticism, this isn't me passing judgment. It's just fact. Like me and Estelle talk about Darby a lot. I quite enjoy watching him get hurt. I think he's a complete idiot. Not his biggest fan. Like, it's not my personal style. I don't think he's the best wrestler in the world, but he can take a beating, and you cannot deny that. And this match was just him taking a beating, to be honest. It was entertaining. Like I said, I do think that it wasn't really the main event. I think that Nigel McGuinness versus Bryan Danielson was the main event, but that's arguable. It doesn't really matter. To be honest, it doesn't matter because both matches were great and they both had a spot on the card. They both had a lot of time. All great wrestlers. But I'm sure you guys get what I mean. This didn't really have as much hype behind it, I don't think. But anyway, Darby went for his stupid finisher, the coffin drop, and Moxley caught him in a sleeper hold, which was really cool. I really liked that. And yeah, that wasn't for the win. That wasn't the finish, but that was sort of leading up. That was the beginning of the end for Darby. Basically, he then tried to take Moxley up to the top rope for like a superplex or something. Mox reversed it into an avalanche and Death Rider for the win from the second rope, which was a very awesome spot, and I liked that a lot. So that now means that Moxley is the number one contender for the AEW Championship, and he's going to face Danielson at Wrestle Dream. So that 20-man battle royal win meant nothing for Darby. Apparently, maybe, Danielson's going to beat Moxley and say, Darby, you deserve this match. You never got your deserved shot, perhaps. But it's just funny to me that I know people have said it a lot, but it's just funny that Darby would put his number one contendership on the line against Moxley, and he's lost it now. He's lost that chance at a championship. I think about it in kayfabe terms. So yeah, that's a real shame for Darby. But for selfish reasons, and I'm sure a lot of other people will agree with me, I'm so excited to see Moxley versus Danielson. It's going to bang. And I love the Blackpool Combat Club, of course, but I think they'll be better enemies than teammates, as many wrestlers often are. Um, so I think it's interesting that Wrestle Dream is in Tacoma, Washington, which is Danielson's home state. So you have to think Mox is probably losing. I think because, there's still quite a lot of 2024 left for Danielson to sink his teeth into, a couple more matches for him to have before he retires from full-time wrestling. So I don't see him losing in this one, especially because it's in his hometown. I'm a bit worried about how that might kill Moxley's momentum coming back, recently, and breaking up the Blackpool Combat Club and this whole new look and aura, behaviour. I'm a bit worried about the impact that might have, but we're thinking too far in the future. That's fine. I'll just focus on being excited about the match. But that wasn't all. So then Bryan Danielson appeared out of nowhere and he decided to choke out Mox from behind with like a tie, I think. And then Marina jumped on his back and tried to choke him out to get him off. And then Claudio and Pac eventually came down to the ring to fight Danielson off. So Danielson tried to get his revenge for Mox basically trying to suffocate and kill him with a plastic bag not too long ago. As this was happening, the crowd were chanting for Yuta, which was really sad because he wasn't there, and that was a real shame. It was Private Party and Commander, and they were setting up for these three facing off against Wheeler, apparently Pac and Claudio for the Trios Championships on Collision this week. So, I get it, you want to build for that. Fine. But oh my god, it was such a missed opportunity to have Yuta. The crowd were chanting for him. What a great opportunity it would have been for him to have this big moment, to give the crowd what they wanted. They were so behind him, so willing for him to be there, and he just wasn't. And I felt sorry for Private Party and Command. That's a shit position for them to be in. That was a real shame, and I do think that was a missed opportunity. And wouldn't it have been more compelling if Wheeler was there to, get rid of his teammates who he then has to go fight with on Collision? Wouldn't that have been more compelling to me? I think it would have, but maybe I'm biased because I love Wheeler. And I love to see the crowd responding to this story the way that they are. It's really nice to see that they're being receptive to that. I think that his character and the way that he's presenting his reaction to Bryan being attacked by the BCC and him not knowing about it has been really effective. And his reaction when it happened, he was crying, he was upset. I think it's connecting. It's connecting. It's a great opportunity for him to just, we see another layer to him, building his character and give him some momentum. So I hope we don't squander this opportunity. AEW, don't fuck up Wheeler, whatever you do. Okay, and then final countdown played, because Private Party and Commander, they chased the BCC off, and everything was happy ending. Final countdown blasting, beautiful. What a way to end Dynamite, eh? We're starting off with Danielson and we'll finish off with Danielson. There's no better way to do it other than with the best wrestler in the world. So yeah, that was Dynamite. I have rattled through that quite quick, I think. I don't know. I don't know how long I've been going for. But yeah, that was Grand Slam. And I think it lived up to the name. I think it was a Grand Slam. It was, like I said before, it was just wrestling matches being violent, being meaningful. They had, they all had stories behind them, which is great. There was no sort of meaningless matches. Yeah, it was good. It was a good Dynamite, and yes, it wasn't perfect. I pointed out the ways I didn't think it was perfect. So I'm not gonna give it a 10 out of 10, but I do have to give it a rating. I want to maybe give it a 9. I'm torn between 8.5 and a 9, and I feel like 9 feels very optimistic. So for that reason, I'm leaning towards 8.5, but then I'm thinking, why is that? But like, where do these 1.5 points come off it? And I don't think I can justify that. I think that is too low for this. I'm gonna give it a 9. I'm gonna settle on that. Estelle, if you're watching, let me know what you would have said. Because I'm curious. It's always interesting when it's just yourself and you can't like balance it with someone else's opinion. Yeah, what do you guys think as well? Let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Was it a 9? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? What did you think of Bryan versus Nigel? Where do you think Bryan's going next? Do we think he's losing to Mox? I don't think he is, but maybe he is. Yeah, obviously, we always want to know your thoughts when we try to reply to all comments and stuff. So please let us know. And as well, I will reiterate, I know I said this at the start, but if you've got any questions, please let us know and we'll answer them very soon in our Q&A. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Too Sweet podcast. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate all the support. And if you can subscribe if you haven't already, that'd be amazing. Or if you're listening on Spotify, hello everyone listening on Spotify, please leave us a rate and follow us as well. So that means you will not miss out on a single episode. Yeah, like I said before, we've got a couple of special episodes planned. So yeah, keep your eyes out for those. And I'll see you next time. And hopefully, well, she will be. Estelle will be back next time, so don't fear.
I must bid you adieu. Goodbye, you and good.